So as usual, we're going to give a few minutes for people to dial in. Good morning, Hyper NFT1. In case you were wondering, I'm still feeling a bit under the weather. Better than yesterday, but it's probably going to take a couple of days to get over this cold. But I had good sleep last night, which helped. Hello, Zoe. Okay, we're getting to the point where it's time to begin. So, yeah. Even the music is getting a bit darker. Which bears no relation to the charts today, of course. I'll fade the music and let's get started. So, welcome to the daily NFT market analysis by me, Daniel Tenner, aka Swombat, where I look at the charts. I look at the NFT market based on data rather than the vibes, which is quite helpful in times like this right now, where things are very uncertain, and it's helpful to have some kind of data to rely on rather than being at the mercy of whatever random crap is being shared on Twitter by people who are very emotional about their bags mostly, which is okay. I mean, it's normal to be emotional about your bags, but let's look at some data as well, because that's quite helpful. So if we look at the top 10, yesterday we were somewhere around here. Now we've kind of retraced further down, and it might look quite scary, but we'll see that the longer term perspective gives us a bit more perspective, but still, like, we've kind of retraced to below the below the 30-day SMA there. Zeneca all this also sort of like hanging in there, but sort of trending a little bit down. Zeneca New is sort of consolidating here, and the women-led projects index is also sort of consolidating at this level, which is higher than it has been for about a week, over a week, I think. Yeah, that's 2 weeks there, 14 days, so that's like a week and a half since it got to this level that is consolidating at. If we look at the bar charts, we can see that, you can see why it's important to have a longer term view, because if you just look at this chart here, just look at this chart here, it looks like, oh, there was a kind of decrease and then a kind of big spike and then a collapse. And if we look at the bar charts, like the 14-day bar charts, it puts our nose right up to it, and we see this kind of like weird variation here, then a big spike, and then a kind of exponential decline. And that might lead us to form a false view of the market, I believe, because it's not looking at enough perspective. And conversely, if we let's jump straight into the top 10, the full one. Yes, the retracement is a little bit scary there right now, but in the medium term, but like in the 90-day perspective, we can see that there's still, like, you know, yes, right now it's kind of dropping below the, like, some of the lines that we might have drawn for the recovery, but we can see that that's happened before, first of all. If we draw this one, yeah, we're below this one as well, but like, basically it happens. The volumes do kind of vary up and down. They don't just follow a straight line up. And that happens in a downtrend with volume going up as well, and it happens in an uptrend, like, which we can see here. There is a lot of volatility, and that's normal. That's the way that the market behaves, and so that puts this kind of drop into a bit more perspective. That, yeah, I mean, if we stay here, if we stay down here, and then we start going down, then yeah, obviously that would not be good. But to me, it's a very plausible scenario that it's like we kind of go down here, stay a bit, just enough to scare everybody. Then it sort of like goes back up here, and then maybe another spike from another Yuga Labs news release or something, or maybe Coinbase NFT launches or something. And that's like I'm not yet calling this a change of trend. It's orange because there is a risk. Like I gave a kind of orange dot for today because there is a risk that we could just go down. Maybe this was the bull market, the great bull market of March, and now we're going back down, and there's not going to be anything else. I still don't think so. I didn't think so up here, and I don't think so down here. And obviously, I don't know the future, so it could very well actually go this way. But my sense is that based on how this market operates, because this trend has been continued for a while there, and remembering what happened back in December, which we can sort of see here, I really need a 120-day chart. There was a drop there near the beginning, and yet the trend continued, and there was more than one peak at the top. And I don't know, like with a long build up like this, that's taken most of a month, I don't think there's going to be just one peak and then we're just back going downwards. And that's just my theory, and I don't know the future. If we glance at the other indices on the bar charts, we can see that there's a good mix of projects. It's not just one project that's driving all the volume. That's true also for the women-led projects index there. There's a lot of like activity across multiple projects. And yeah, I mean, there's no like Zeneca News not doing that well, so there's not that much activity there. But yeah, this is another example of why I have the health index, because like technically this is the same data as this. Like these two screens are exactly the same, as in they have the same underlying data. And but this one is much easier to see trends with, and it took just a little bit of like algorithms and stuff to get it going, like adding a log and create like normalizing it from 1 to 10, and suddenly you can see things that you just can't see when you're looking at these bar charts. It's just too confusing and it's just too hard. And even if I load up the longer term version of those bar charts, it's impossible to really tell what's going on. It's just too difficult. So let's go back to the health indices, which are a bit easier to analyze. Worth noting as well that as the volume has dropped, the price is also dropping again. So like we're seeing in this bull market, assuming this is a bull market, which I think it's fair to call it a lead up to a bull market, we're seeing the price react very quickly to the volume. There's not a lot of lag between the two, at least according to my price index. So as soon as the volume drops, the price just follows instantly. It's like people are, as soon as they sense the wind changing, they just start undercutting, I guess. If we look at the Zeneca Alt Index, moving on to that one, there we're still also, it looks a little bit more optimistic than the top 10, because the spike was maybe not as high, and so the collapse is not as high either. So there it's easier, and you know, maybe the Zeneca Alt Index is a better index of the state of the market than the top 10 at the moment. But anyway, here it's easier to see. Yeah, we're still in an uptrend. This one is still above the 30-day SMA, so it looks a bit more optimistic from that perspective. I wouldn't go as far as to call this a bounce off the 30-day SMA. That seems a little bit over explanatory or over ambitious in the explanations. But we're seeing a kind of nice U-shape, which I mean, I expect it to continue. I don't expect that, you know, we've had this kind of drop, and then we've had this recovery, and then it's now just going to go back into a drop. And I could be wrong, and maybe this is it. But like I'm not calling this the end of the bull market. The volumes are still low, though. It's worth noting across the Zeneca Alt. We're at the volume level, like right now with this drop that we've had, we're at a bad day in the bear market volume, or like is it bad day? Well, it's like middle of the road bear market from October, November in terms of volumes. So it's not a great place to be, but after the hype pump that we had with Yuga Labs, as I said, I expect a sort of hangover, and so for a hangover, it's not too bad in the Zeneca Old Index. Zeneca New is still relatively unclear. I mean, I think it's reacted, like it's the liquidity distribution that's happened there from the other projects. But it's good to see that it hasn't kind of collapsed all the way back down to its normal trend downwards. It's collapsed to somewhere a little bit higher, where it's now once again flirting with that 7-day SMA. So I see this as an optimistic sign for Zeneca New, although ultimately it's going to be driven by what happens to the top 10, like as in what happens with all the other projects. Like I think those projects tend to follow, like they tend to pump afterwards. And I appreciate that probably a different selection of projects would show something else, but this is the selection of projects that I'm using, so it works well enough to get a sense of like, so Zeneca New is basically more recent projects, and while Zeneca Old is older projects basically, and newer projects, more recent projects seem to get the liquidity distribution later than older projects. And if we have a look at women-led projects index, again, that one could still be in a downtrend. We're not out of that yet. But again, we are consolidating above the 7-day SMA at the moment. So it's not too bad. Like we're above one of the lines, which is nice. And maybe it's just going to resume its downtrend now, or maybe not. I don't know. Nobody knows. But definitely some projects in there are getting some little pumps. World of Women is one. Meta Angels also had a pump recently. Disclosure, I own some Meta Angels. I now kind of wish I bought more at 0.2 because they're now sitting at 0.3. But yeah, it happens. If we just have a glance at crypto for the context. By the way, I see a question there. You probably had this question before. What platform do you think currently does the best job of minting NFTs? I.e. from the perspective of the NFT issuer. I've not had this question before. I'm not sure what you mean. I think, like, which platform, like, I'm not sure if there are, but I wasn't aware there were platforms for minting NFTs other than OpenSea, which has its standard contract. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question though. Anyway, let's have a quick look at the crypto context. So it pumped a little bit. I mean, I'm calling this a little bit, in crypto terms, that's like, from 40.7 to 42. It's like a 2K pump. That's not much to like think about. And it's still within these hastily drawn lines. We're still, I think, going in that flag pattern until we break out of it upwards or downwards. I'm not actually like worrying about this at all. I think it's going to continue just being boring here. I hope so, because with a few more weeks of flat crypto, it continues to be good times for NFTs. Gas is right now at 41, but I saw it at 30 earlier, so it's still relatively low. So it's still quite conducive to NFT projects doing reasonably well. And ETH is, as usual, more or less the same, sitting at 3,000 now. But also you can mentally draw a kind of triangle flag pattern. Okay, so I think we're at the end of the initial update. I don't know if anybody has any questions. We can give it a little bit of time. By the way, feel free, if you're a regular and you're listening to this, feel free to type your questions while I'm doing the update. I can reasonably well ignore the questions until I get to the end of the update, and it's helpful for me. Then I can just jump straight into the questions afterwards, and it's okay if you wait as well. I will give it a couple of minutes. We don't have to have questions, by the way. It's also totally all right not to. It can be a shorter update, but I'll put on some music in the meantime, and hopefully I'll remember to switch it off if I start speaking again. Oh, and if you're listening here, I'm doing a Spaces tonight with Little Atlas. So yeah, join in tonight, which for US people will be sometime in the day, in the afternoon, I think, depending on where you are in the US. It's like 8 p.m. UK time, I think. Oh no, I still haven't. Sorry, I still haven't posted the comments on the Cool World burn mechanism. I was feeling a bit ill yesterday, and I just rested. Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll share some comments now. Let me switch off the music. And also just noting, I'll need to type those up. But my sense is that the Cool World white paper. Let me just open it up. I'm talking, might as well. So this was posted on my Discord with a question asking for feedback. Where is it? Here it is. It's a Medium post. So the key point that I think it makes, which is correct, I think, is that NFTs kind of veer a bit too much towards like copying DeFi concepts. I mean, the obvious ones being stuff like staking and like other things like that make sense in DeFi but don't really make sense in NFTs. Although sometimes they do, but most of the time they don't. And so it ends up being driven more by people trying to trade them up and down rather than the actual core functionality of like being art and community building and so on. And I agree with that thesis that you kind of miss out if you just focus purely on the DeFi angle of NFTs. So that's a good problem statement. I just don't see that the burn mechanism is different. It's still it's still focusing on like the it's still focusing on a kind of mechanic that I would call similar to DeFi. So burn is a concept that is there in DeFi as well. It's kind of like what is different, I think, is when you've got like, you know, you can see the sort of like the benefits that are being listed there. These are all DeFi benefits, sweeping or floor manipulation or floor influence benefits. You know, sweeping the floor, deflationary. That's a DeFi concept. Diamond hands is also kind of like financial perspective, and community curation is a more interesting angle. But basically, the burn mechanism seems to still be focused on, like, it's kind of the NFT project being so very self-focused on its own price, effectively. And I think the projects that succeed very well are those that aren't focused on their own price, or rather off, like, you know, they might care about their price, but they're more focused on actually building value. So the ideal project, like, well, one of the ways that I see an ideal project is that it basically, it's a fundraising mechanism for some kind of project where initially your investors and your customers are the same thing, but at some point the investors sell out the tokens that start to belong to the customers, and the customers buy them for the functionality, not for the investment value, not because it goes up, but because it gives them something useful. So if you take like Bored Ape as an example, even though the value that, say, Justin Bieber got from buying an ape is not something that I consider valuable, because of the flex of spending 500 ETH for a Bored Ape that has the same ID as his home address or something like that, that is a utility that clearly he valued at 500 ETH, which, fair enough, for Justin Bieber, that's probably a day's wages, so he probably doesn't care. And it's that is a utility at that point. So if whoever sold that ape for 500 ETH might have minted it and held it for all this time and then sold it at that price. And so the investor sold their investment to a customer, and that's a really cool way that NFTs can sort of change the way that businesses are developed. With this kind of burn mechanism and stuff, it's still kind of just focused on investors and trying to help investors stay involved, or, like, you know, make more value from their thing, like, you know, the deflationary stuff. And, you know, customers don't care about your token being deflationary. They care about what you like they care about the value that you're selling them. If you take an example from the crypto world, like take Arweave, for example, customers of Arweave who are storing data on Arweave are not caring about whether the token is deflationary or whatever. Like, who cares? It doesn't matter to them. They care about the fact that it commits to hosting data for 200 years, and if they pay a bunch of money, they get their data hosted. And that's what Arweave is selling, and that is selling to its customers. Now, people investing in Arweave might care about deflationary benefits and sweeping and diamond hands and stuff like that, but the actual customers don't care about that. And I think that's where a project needs to focus. The stuff that is going to bring actual customers, is going to deliver value that they can recognize and that they're willing to pay a certain amount for. And that doesn't mean that the value needs to be completely outside of DeFi or NFTs. In some cases, like Llamaverse, and disclaimer or disclosure, I'm an investor in Llamaverse. It's providing a service of like whitelists and stuff like that to NFT traders that is valuable to them, and that becomes the customers. And I bought into Llamaverse not because I'm a trader. I was exploring. I wanted to hang out with more traders and learn a bit more about trading, but I knew that eventually I will probably not be the main customer for Llamaverse, but I felt like it would likely do well, and it looks like I was right. And the current customers are people who want these whitelist opportunities. And at some point I will sell my llamas to those people, and they will pay an amount that they think is worth it for getting the benefits that they get from Llamaverse. Not because they think the llamas themselves might 10x from there, although they might, who knows, but because they actually think it's worthwhile, like it's worth that amount of money for them to get access to the benefits that Llamaverse provides. Another example that, I keep giving examples that I'm bought in, but that I'm bought into. But another example is Meta Angels. There is that wishing well functionality, which, if developed properly, will be extremely valuable. Like the example that I had, that I heard when the founders pitched me was that you might have a problem, like, for example, you're trying to get your blue tick on Twitter, and you could ask on the wishing well, like, can somebody help me with that? And somebody in the 10,000 people who are in Meta Angels might either work at Twitter or know somebody who works at Twitter who can help facilitate that. And that's very valuable. And if they do build a favors exchange mechanism that works in this way, then it will be very valuable to own a Meta Angel as a customer, not as an investor. And until you can make a strong value proposition of why somebody would own that as a customer rather than as an investor, I think it's all still self-referential. And looking at the cool burn mechanism, that's still something focused on investors. It's not focused on customers, I think. And that's what I don't buy about it. It's still just making the game more interesting and complex about how the price goes up and down, and how, like, trying to figure out ways to maintain the price. Hope that answers your question, Bahamu. And I'll try and post that on the chat as well. Let's go back to this. If anybody has any other question, I still got a few minutes. If not, I will probably end this call shortly, and or this live stream, and I'm gonna have lunch. Either way, thank you very much for dialing in, whoever's dialed in, and for listening after the fact, whoever's listening after the live stream. As ever, I appreciate you watching this, and I hope you get some value out of it. Okay, I'll give it about 10-20 seconds more, and then I'll probably end the stream. Okay, right. Well, it's time to end the stream. So thank you very much for listening and have a lovely day. Yo, what's the NFT alpha? Well, have you listened to the rest of the earlier? Rest that voice up. Yeah, I'm trying not to talk too much, but it's fine. I had a good sleep last night, and that really helped. Dickenses, feel free to hit me up on Discord and to follow up on this, because it's now 26 minutes in, and feels like the alpha was already earlier. All right, have a lovely day, everyone, and take care, and enjoy your afternoon or day or night or whatever, wherever it is, whatever time it is, where you are. Thank you.